Why do some people seem to achieve double the amount of stuff in half the time as others? It's not multitasking, it's layering. Let me dive deeper to teach you this skill so you can start to do more in less time. If your to-do list is running your life instead of you running it, then this episode is for you as we learn more about productivity and how to get more done in less time. You don't need more hours in your day. You just need to get smarter at using them. Here's how, as we talk about layering and how you can get more done in less time. Welcome to Life by 8, your blueprint for living the most extraordinary life. I am Rebecca Grugan, your life architect on this journey to designing your ultimate life. If you are ready to level up using values levels, understanding yourself with the energetic blueprint, our 8 pillars to human wellness framework, this is for you. You are in the right place, so let's go. So you've got a to-do list that's a mile long, but by the end of the day, it feels like nothing got done and you did every other thing except what was on it. Does that sound familiar? What if I told you that the secret isn't working harder, but smarter? So today we're going to explore the art of layering, a game-changing approach to mastering productivity and truly getting shit done. So in this episode, we're going to break down what layering is, why it's such a powerful strategy, and how you can apply it to every area of your life. Whether you are juggling work, your own personal goals, or big projects, layering will help you stay focused, efficient, and in control. Getting shit done, or GSD, as we refer to it at LB8, isn't just about crossing items off a list. It is about achieving meaningful progress towards your goals without burning out. Layering creates structure and momentum and the ability to do more with more intention and helps maximize your energy and time. So what is layering? Layering is the practice of doing something and designing how you do it to allow for something else to happen at the same time. Old school ways, people might talk about multitasking. However, this way is about designing with intention, and you're not jumping from one thing to the other. You are doing multiple things at the same time. The core principles of layering. 1, the foundation first. So you start with the main goal. For example, walking 10,000 steps a day. So let's just say that that's the foundational goal that I want to reach. I schedule this into my calendar. So your calendar shows your true priorities. If you want to be healthier, you need to put your workouts into your calendar. So if I want to walk 10,000 steps a day, part of the intention of buying a new Apple Watch, because I went without one for a couple of months there, was because when I have one, it tracks my steps and that keeps me more motivated. But what it also allows me to do is see my calendar and remind me to make sure I'm doing my workouts each and every day. Then 3, you look at how you can maximize that time that you've allocated. So for example, one of the things that I do is I will go for a walk, and usually I have podcasts in a playlist, or I'm listening to an audiobook that takes time, and I will do the walk whilst consuming valuable content. Number 4, focus on priorities with intention. So the ability to be able to connect dots that truly go together, the example of walking whilst listening to a podcast or audiobook, this allows you to do more with the same amount of time. So you could just go for the walk, and I'll speak into this later. You may not want to walk with your podcast, and that's fine. But also, most of the time, that layering becomes your intentional learning space as well. So you're moving and listening and learning at the same time. So number 1, foundation first. Start with the main goal. So for example, this year, I want to intentionally walk 10,000 steps a day. And so how I've done this in the past is I love having my Apple Watch because it counts the steps for me daily. I don't always carry or have my phone on me. So the phone does capture my steps sometimes. Thank you. Thank you, Siri. Thank you, I found it. Thanks. See, productivity can be good, but it can also be a disturbance. So having that allows me to have my steps tracked, which actually does motivate me. I went for a number of months, about 6 months without a watch, and I noticed myself sort of move less, go to the gym more. I was less motivated. So I really like using the watch for that. It also, what I do is put the walking into my calendar, so that usually for me it's in the evening to wind down from the day, to transition from work into being a mum or home life. Sometimes I will also utilize my walk so the layering side of things is to listen to a podcast or an audiobook that I've been listening to, or that is something that I want to listen to because it's going to be helpful for one of my clients. I'll also take phone calls, and when I get a phone call, depending on who it is, I will go for a walk whilst I'm on that phone call, because it means that I'm moving at the same time. And that's really helpful, especially if I don't need to take notes in the style of conversation that I'm in. You can also do it. You can go on a walk with your partner to reconnect. And sometimes the four of us in our family will all go for a walk if it's something that we think is needed. But I also use the going for a walk or run by myself as that self-regulation piece to keep my nervous system regulated. So that's just, the goal is to walk 10,000 steps a day, but there's multiple things that I can do and layer upon each other to get that goal done, but I also get more done at the same time. I know some people, for instance, if this was a goal, they had 10,000 steps a day. I have a friend who has a walking pad, and so while she's working, she's also walking on the walking pad. You may notice that there are some influencers who are, recording content whilst they're on the treadmill. Layla Hormozi does that, but so does some fitness influencers here in Australia. So, you can layer. Your goal is this. What else could you do whilst you're doing that? That suits you, and that still makes it enjoyable. There are times that I won't layer, as in I just want the walk with no input because of how much data or information or conversations I've had that day. And the more you get to know yourself, the more you learn when layering's beneficial and when it might be detrimental. So that is your foundation first. So you need to start with the main goal, whatever that is. When you know that, you can then break that down to see how you can layer things into it and on top of it. So let's go deeper into how to layer. So step 1, defining your end goal. Start by asking yourself, what am I ultimately trying to achieve in life? Be specific and visualize the outcome. What do you want to achieve in your life? You see, it's when you have this overall picture that you can see the opportunity for layering and to get more done. You can work backwards, what we call reverse engineering, from that end goal to where you are now, and that's how you can see how you can get more done in the same amount of time. So I also asked the question, for what purpose? This question I ask a lot of clients because they'll say, like, I'm doing this, for what purpose? I want to do X, Y, Z. Great, but for what purpose? Learning how to know what you want, how to get there, and why, mixed with the ability to set goals, it means that you will achieve so much more than those who don't. And that brings me to step number 2. Know your why, is to schedule it into your calendar. So Dan Martell speaks about your calendar shows your values. It really represents your true priorities. So you can say that your values are family, connection, love, parenting, and yet in your calendar it's all work related, it's all workout related, and your children or your partner are not scheduled in anywhere. So ensuring that your calendar shows your true priorities, that your goals have been included in how you manage your time. So if you want to be healthier, putting your workouts into your calendar is important because it's showing your priorities and it's reminding you of where you intentionally chose and want to spend your time. And so if you're doing those workouts, great, then you can be, whether it's with somebody to catch up with them, whether it's you can have a phone call whilst you're doing it, whether it's listening and what you're listening to or consuming. These are ways to layer it. An extreme, layering that I also do is how can I make it work related at the same time? So sometimes I'll join an 8-week challenge or join a new gym to learn in a new community. So to learn from new people, but also to be part of a new community, which also helps my networking. So these are the ways in which I can layer, but I make sure that it's in my calendar. A reason why our 8-pillar framework works so well is because it gives you insight into all areas of your life and how you can focus on one at a time when you're overwhelmed, or all at a time when life is going smoothly. You see, connecting the dots, seeing how things go together becomes easier, and layering has an even bigger impact as you learn how to do it, as it's all linked to your why. In NLP, we talk about the hierarchy of ideas. This is the ability to go abstract and specific on a subject or situation when it's needed. So for example, let's just say I have to get to training. This means that I need transport. Transport could look like walking, being in a car, a bus, a train, a boat, a plane, all of the things, right? Like they're all transport. Okay, so then which one is the most logical for this situation? A car can mean petrol. It could mean parking and convenience. It could mean freedom and being weatherproof. But in a different situation, dependent on where the training is, a car can actually be inconvenient. It can be or mean more exposure to weather because of where you have to park to get to training, how far you have to walk. It could mean more expenses like tolls and petrol, or even paying for that parking. Do you see what I mean? You see, the goal here is when you learn how to think differently, it shifts your ability to get things done. And so let's say that you presume that going to training is best in a car, but when you analyze it and you realize actually, if I caught the train, that would take me straight to where training is. But when you're on the train, you could also be on your laptop doing some work or reading the book you've wanted to read for the last 2 years. You can layer. You have the thing you have to do, but what can you do? How can you design it in a way that you get more done in that same amount of time? You start to see, you start to learn and have the ability to see how everything is connected in life. As you progress through your values levels, this will become even more and more apparent as you start to embrace efficiency, as you start to look at systems, how they can be helpful rather than a hindrance, but how you can utilize them, how you can utilize time instead of feel manipulated by it. And number 3, looking at how you can maximize the time that you've allocated. So if you're allocating 1 hour for a walk, then okay, is there a podcast that goes for 45 minutes to an hour? Is there a phone call that you could naturally have within that time without rushing the other person through it? You want to look at the time constraints, but also in that allocation, how can you bring even more value to that time? So an example is, when we do our podcast, as we've been growing over the last year or so, we're looking at the time that you're giving to listen to these podcasts. How can we bring more value to that allocation of time? How can we give you more? And that's where the resources that you can choose to download come into play. This is all layering. See, multitasking is a productivity killer. This is jumping from one thing to the other. Layering is doing something else at the same time that has a logical or deeper impact long term. For example, the one I used earlier about walking and listening to content as a form of layering. Also, dependent on a phone call, dependent who's on the phone, I will get up and walk whilst I'm on the phone because this is layering also. It means I'm getting movement whilst connecting with someone. Just know that if you start doing this, especially if you do this in the car, so if you start calling people when you're in the car, people could start to tell when you've got to where you are going because you start to wrap up the conversation. I know there's been some of you who've done that also, where you've called your mum when you're in the car to fill the time because you can, and then you get to your location and then you start wrapping her up while she's in the middle of telling you something. Be intentional here. Layering can be really effective, but it can also become really noticeable and people realize that it's about you more than it is the connection or them. Right. So for business owners though, another example is learning how to document things rather than create content. meaning that you can layer multiple things at the same time. So, for instance, we record this podcast, but then we'll also do some B-roll. We've also had a photographer in today so that the team are getting the new headshots for the campaign that's coming up, all at the same time. And getting even more specific, if you have a day that you get your hair done at the hairdresser, you could book the appointment for the morning or the evening based off whatever you want to achieve. And then you could plan the day on that day that you have the hairdresser that you record some content or have a photo shoot after it. Or you could go out or go on a date with your partner and your hair's already done. This allows you to get even more value out of that task. There are so many areas and ways in your life that you can do this. As you learn the art of layering, that is how you learn to get more done, but it's also why you will feel more joy, feel more passion, and feel more successful, because you are utilizing and giving more value to the time that you have. Number 4, so to focus on your priorities with intention. So being able to look at what your priorities or goal is, and then to know how to connect the dots of things that go together. For instance, walking whilst listening to a podcast or audiobook makes sense, especially in the daytime. However, at nighttime, it may not be completely safe to listen to something whilst you're running or walking because you can't hear what's going on around you and you can't see. So this is where your intention and your ability to learn how to layer for you comes hand in hand. Another way in which you can, things that might logically go together is cooking food. So you might be cooking a meal. At the same time you're cooking a meal, you may be listening to music that reminds you, or learning a new language. Say you're cooking Italian and you've been wanting to learn Italian. Maybe you learn Italian words whilst you are cooking it. These are things that can go hand in hand and make it more enjoyable and a different, deeper experience. Some of the times, like I know old school layering would be like where I can remember my grandparents ironing whilst they're watching the TV. It might be that whilst you're having a meeting that you are recording it, that you are. One of the cool ones that I have loved when I've been testing AI recently is using Fathom in my online meetings and coaching sessions, because it has saved me so much time. But what it has given me is the ability where it's recorded, where the transcription happens automatically, but it also automatically creates the priorities, the tasks, who needs to do what, and that all happens automatically. But it gives me, the recording of it also gives me the ability to cut out content that might be great reels, or if the client's given permission in this case, but it gives you the ability to have content. So videoing things where you can is a really strong way of utilizing software, AI, things like that, to get more out of the same amount of time that it might have just taken you by having the session itself. And so they are the ways, they are the principles, and they are some examples of what you can do and how to use it, and how I use it in my day-to-day life as well. When you utilize your calendar with intention, it can help you layer even more effectively, and you'll be surprised with how much you actually get done. So some people like to meal prep on a Sunday for the week, batching their cooking time into one part of the week instead of every day. Now, this doesn't suit everyone. I'm someone who can get bored of food really easily. So meal prep is not something that I do, but I know many people who have success with this. One thing that does work for me is to make my lunch at the same time as the boys' school lunches, because it means that if I am on the run, on the road, in and out of the car, then I have food already prepped. So at the same time I'm doing that task, I'm also prepping my food for the day. The more you know yourself, the more you can implement strategies that will work for you. Because remember, life design, this is about building around you, not building something you have to try to fit into. Okay? So you may read a book, you may see somebody successful and they give you their morning routine, and then you try to do their whole morning routine and it doesn't work for you. This doesn't work for you because you're trying to fit yourself into a box that's not you. Learn what you like, learn what you don't like, learn what gives you energy, learn what takes your energy away, and start to build your life design your life around that, and layering allows you to do that your way and have that, exponential growth, that progress. And another technique that I use from Alex Hormozi is to separate maker time versus manager time in your calendar. So this means that you are not switching the type of work you have to do in the same day, going from a meeting to recording a podcast to thinking about a problem that you have to solve to another meeting. They're all different hats and different types of energy you need to bring. The ability to have maker versus manager time means that you have a full day where you know you're in manager mode. And then you might have a full day where you're in maker mode, and that's all your creativity, that's your deep thinking. When you can utilize your calendar this way, it allows for you to, put meetings back to back and to show up with that energy and to give it what it needs. But on top of that, you could also focus on documenting them wherever it's appropriate and confidentiality doesn't come into play. But it can give you content for your social media or to document the process for your team and business. So for example, if I'm talking about a process we're implementing for a new center that's been open or for a new package in our coaching business, whatever it is, if I was to document, i.e. video or record the session, it allows me to then get that turned into a SOP, into a process where somebody else would know what we spoke about, but also what to do. So this is where layering can become really, really intentional and powerful and give you so much value out of these tasks that you have to do. Now, step 5, celebrating the small wins. Now, I want you to acknowledge or learn how to acknowledge and notice when you start to see the shifts and progress that you are making. See, layering helps you feel more productive, and that productivity can be addictive, which is why at times we also need to remember to stop and celebrate our small wins. I'll give you an example because I am somebody who just gets on with it no matter what we've achieved or what's happening. But I remember a time when I was younger and I was playing football or soccer for wherever you are in the world. I was playing for Queensland, our state here, and we were at the national titles. And I was taking a free kick, which was sort of near halfway line. We were down by 1 and I shot and I scored. And the team was celebrating and I just ran back to halfway to start the game again, like nothing had happened. You see, when I reflect back on all these moments in my life, I remember when we won National Service of the Year for I Am Montessori for our childcare centres. And I remember celebrating. I didn't even write a speech because I was like, there's no way I'm going to win. But then when we won, I didn't really celebrate it. I sort of did the speech and was a bit inspirational and then sat back down and then just got on with it. Learning how to celebrate the small things shifts the frequency in which you live your life, but it allows you to have more energy to do even more in your life. But it brings in the joy and the happiness and the fun. And that's why it could just be a sale for the day. It could be the completion of a book that you've been reading or a project that you've been working on or going to the gym every day you said you would this week. It's important to balance your productivity with reflection, with moments of stopping to enjoy the life you've been creating. That's why celebrating the small things is so important. And so have a look at your life. Where could the art of layering shift your ability to reach your goals? Where are you multitasking instead of layering with intention? Be really honest with yourself, because starting to put this into practice shifts everything, your energy levels, your joy, your happiness, your intention, everything. Designing your life so that you can put layering in will shift it all. So today we've explored the art of layering, of knowing your goals, knowing your why, and reverse engineering how you are going to achieve them with the art of layering. This strategy is your secret weapon for getting shit done and to enjoy a life without burning out. So to make layering even easier, I have created a free setting goals workbook that guides you through breaking down your goals step by step, as well as how to use the 8-pillar framework. You can check the link in the show notes below. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who's ready to get shit done. Remember that productivity isn't about doing everything. It's about doing the right things the right way at the right time. Thank you for listening. And as always, enjoy living your life by 8.